fortunate enough to be sitting here with Brian Clarey. He's a good friend of mine. And he also is an entrepreneur who owns Triad City Beat. Started that a few years ago. He's a journalist. He's a dad. He's a hilarious guy. He's a husband. He's a football fan, amongst a lot of things. And I talked just about a lot of different subjects today. But I want to know, like, what was it about being a journalist, becoming a writer? When did that happen for you, and what sort of put you on that path?
All right, we'll go back to that. That was like 89.
Right.
I was in college with no particular plan. I was a good writer. I just figured I'd do something along those lines. I figured I was going to write a novel or something like that. And then I took a writing class. I took a journalism class in college, and I was like, wow, this really clicked with what I wanted to do.
What was it that really...
So I was always really into, like, authentic experience, as I knew I was going to be a writer, and to do that, you have to learn how to make sentences and learn the grammar and everything, but you have to have an interesting life, and you have to have a lot of experiences from which to draw on and see all these different kinds of humanity, so I was just always into, like, real life and real people and their problems, and that's kind of what I was into in literature. And then I looked over at journalism, and this was actually happening to real people. So you didn't need to make anything up. It's all just, like, right there. So I started writing in college. I started writing features, just like profiles and, in mostly arts and entertainment type stuff. And then I was in New Orleans, so I started writing for a weekly down there called Gambit after I graduated college, and I was tending bar at an all-night bar. This goes back to so instead of going to grad school, I had been bartending in New Orleans since I was an undergrad, and I took a job at Igor's, which is a 24-hour bar, and I bartended 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. I did that for 5 years, and that's where I went to grad school. That's what I did instead of getting an MFA or an MS in journalism. But I saw everything, man. I mean, some of the people in that fucking bar, like One-Eyed Joe, who was this former, kind of big shot coke dealer who became this sort of sad, and he had one eye because he got into a fight with defending the owner of the bar, Igor, and he got punched in the eye with a broken mug handle. Oh yeah. And just there were all these shady timeshare salesmen that used to hang out in there, and some pool hustlers, and after all the strippers would come in after work, and cab drivers, and just real people. And where I grew up on Long Island in sort of a country club kind of town, and around stuff like that. And I just really wasn't. I just kind of rejected all that. I was outside New York. I wanted to see something more than just this sort of middle class Wall Street veneer.
You got what you asked for moving to New Orleans, man.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go far.
Ready, man.
So then, I just kept doing these sort of literary. What I used to do was sort of long form narrative feature. That's write 5,000 and 6,000 word stories and stuff. And then I moved here.
What brought you here?
Well, I mean, the short version is I knocked up my girlfriend, and we needed a place to be. And New Orleans was really tough. I was an alcoholic, and we were having a baby, and it just it didn't fit with the way our lives were. I'd been in New Orleans for almost 15 years at that point. I was a bartender for most of that time. I was sort of a night type person. I was writing for the paper and all that. So we just came here to have sort of a quiet, normal life,
Which was anything but in some ways. We've known each other for a long time.
Right.
So I don't remember. I think Rosie was 2 when we met.
Maybe.
And
yeah.
Right at 2, I think, when I was doing School Kid Chronicles.
No, Rosie was 6 months old.
It was really
young.
And we met at a bar, of course, and we met at Green Street up in the office.
Yeah. I used to spend some time up in there.
I just moved to town, and I pitched you what I was doing as my first, one of my first businesses I ever did was School Kid Chronicles.
Right.
You're like, all right, I'll cover that. You sent out Adams. I forget what his name was. Adams, his last name.
Lee Adams.
Lee Adams. Yep.
Yeah.
That came out and interviewed me for that, and he wrote a great piece on it. And we began to be friends in that way. And then you came and like checked out what the business was and brought your kids and everything.
Yeah.
And then we've had a lot of times. You're
Oh my
sober
God.
now. How many years?
Almost not 9.
9 years.
No.
So, and there were a lot of years of not being sober.
Yes,
You and
there
I
were.
together a lot. And like, and so, actually, I was with you on the night, the
You
very
were?
last night
Yeah.
you were drinking. Like
That's
the
right.
last powwow we were together.
That's
evening.
right,
And
man.
Started out at a book signing you had, and then we went from Winston to Greensboro, and then just fucking ended up. in the
Well,
corner.
I have no regrets. You know, I've been to the mountaintop, man. I've been out drinking with Dusty Keene, you know.
Shit.
But yeah, all that's. I mean, I don't know. I had a lot of fun drinking until I didn't, and I mean, a lot of the stuff. It sounds so ridiculous, but a lot of the stuff that happened, especially before I moved here, would not have happened. Like, you know, if I wasn't this. I don't know. I kind of lived like a wild animal back then.
Yeah.
I lived in the French Quarter, and I was single, and I made a bunch of money, and like, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I was writing for Gambit, but that was my real job was being a cool ass motherfucker. You know, that was like that. That's pretty much what I saw my job as. You know.
Well, you transitioned to Greensboro nicely, and nestled in, and now you know you've been sober for 9 years. You've got kids in college.
Yeah.
You know your kids are incredibly talented as well. You've got just a lot going for you, and yet you know you're not without your struggles.
Oh God.
You know, as a business owner and as everything else, it can be challenging, of course, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are someone that owns your own business, especially in this time. But it's never easy. And,
No.
you're always faced with different challenges, which is kind of the beauty of it. But you know, you've also written some pieces that I thought were just amazing, and one of them, you know, is a Greensboro piece that I wanted to kind of talk to you about, and it was the story of Ransom Hobbs.
Yeah.
And you were really the only guy that really grabbed this thing and ran with it, and you know.
Well, and I'll tell you,
me about
and you know, this is one of those doors that opened because of my bar life. I spent a lot of time in bars, you know, and when that was a murder. We can give a little exposition, right? So it was a woman who had been working sort of in restaurants around town, and Ransom was a musician around town, and a couple other people, and they went up to her apartment, which was on the Castle, over on Summit Avenue, around sunrise, and when it was
We're
all
on
set.
Summit, by the way, like we're live at the
Yeah.
Flatiron, and so it's like right.
So
here.
it's
This happened,
it's
like,
a
right in
quarter
the
mile
street.
down the road.
Yeah.
So by the time, you know, it was all said and done, Ransom had been bludgeoned to death. Deb Moy was her name. She had been brutalized, but not killed, and the entire place had been set on fire with an accelerant. So Ransom was dead before the fire. Deb actually survived the fire, but she didn't remember anything. And I remember when it happened, everybody, of course, was talking about it, right? If you can remember, because it involved our circle, our tribe, which was the people who hang out in the bars over on Walker Avenue and some of the downtown. You know, there's a bar circuit, and there's people, cultural types who that's who we were, you know. And I remember everybody was talking about it, and I had not seen a single media report about it anywhere, not on the TV news. There was a little tiny item in the News and Record, and I was like, it drives me nuts as a journalist when everybody in town is talking about something and nobody's going to write about it.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
That's what we're supposed to be doing here.
Right.
You know, we're supposed to be the lantern in the mirror, as we say. But so so I dove in, and I just started asking. I went down on Walker Avenue, started asking a ton of questions. Our dear departed friend Kevin Kuhn played a little role in that story, and I was able to retrace their steps. They kind of went drinking all around town. At one point, they were on the stage at Carolina Theater, and like it was Deb's birthday, and the people came and left, and it was just sort of like roving crew. You know how that goes, you know. And it was Westerwood Tavern, and then they went to someone's house after and all that. But that was more legwork than even the cops had put in at that point, too. And I felt, and I still feel, that it was like this sort of, I I don't know, kind of elitism. Like, the people who hang out in the fucking bars don't matter. And, like, well, it's sad, but what do you expect, you know? When I talked to the cops, they were trying to figure out what the hell happened. And these guys had no idea, man. Like, they were like, well, we're thinking maybe it was like a drug deal gone wrong. I was like, well, you know, Ransom was like a musician, and he didn't have the sort of cash resources
for that kind
to
of deal.
get the kind of drugs
Right.
where somebody will bash your head in. And he goes, oh, well, how about this? You know, Ransom and Deb and this other guy, Micah, who was in there. Micah's the one they eventually charged, but they let him go because he did like 6 months. He was in the Guilford County Jail for like 6 months, but they let him go because they didn't have anything. He's in Florida now, I think. And Deb believes Micah was the guy who did it, for what it's worth. So the cop's like, maybe like Ransom and Deb and Mike had like a three-way, but like Micah kind of had some, because, you know, Ransom was sort of a freewheeling, he was a musician, right? So he was sort of a freewheeling dude. And then like Micah had some remorse about the gay stuff, and he wanted to shut Ransom up. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that.
This is just, they're grasping. They're reaching
Right.
at anything to them.
Well, I mean,
Nothing
this
that leaves
was
them there, you know?
This was like what, 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah,
You know, this was a long
way
time
before
ago, and
that.
it's still an open case. Now, here's something really interesting. So I did the first story, and Deb Moy, who survived, was in a coma for a while. You know, and she eventually lost all the fingers on one of her hands. She lost both of her legs in the fire. Horrible burns all over her body. But a few years ago, she graduated law school. She's a lawyer now.
Wow.
She went to Elon Law, and she's married. But she didn't want to talk to me or her family. I think the first 2 stories I did, you know, I just talked to all these other people and looked at all the paperwork and police work that I was able to see. And then after, I think that then like she called me like out of nowhere, and she was like, let's talk. And I was like, okay, you know, because so I went out to, her family lives in Alamance County, so I went out there, and she was living with her parents, and it, you know, they are like real religious, and it really helped them through this.
Just to talk through it. Or
Just for them to be able to
Right.
apply something to this situation that it could explain why some asshole tried to murder their daughter, didn't get away with it, burned away half her body, and what do you do now? And what the hell, you know? I mean, she didn't deserve that, and so, yeah.
That piece was like just wow, and the way that you wrote it was really haunting. You know, it opens with like you being in the scene and it's raining, and you know, you just really get the feel of what it was like the day that you were kind of getting into that story. And
Well, it was.
being a journalist, I don't know, you have to create that. You know?
Well, you know, there's a
Have to-
couple different, like, so in the whole journalism sphere, there's like reporters, and I was never really like a reporter, like a house fire, and I can do that stuff. I was trained to do that stuff, and I've done that stuff, but I was always more of like a columnist or a stylist, which means like Jimmy Breslin or something. You can take that headline and do your reporting, but you don't have to write it in that reverse pyramid kind of boring style. You can take a different approach as a writer to it, you know. And also, like, what I do now, the last 15 years or so, is I do opinion journalism. So I write, like, editorials, you know, writing an editorial, it's only like 350 words. It takes me 20 minutes to write it, and I do like 3 hours of research before I can, you know, sit down and write my opinion about it, you know.
Yeah.
So I've always been on that sort of like, not like Jordan Green, you know, works with me is a reporter. He does not have an opinion, or tries very desperately or not to, and tries to be agnostic about it all, and just do that sort of soft science journalism of reporting and fact gathering, and not figure out what the conclusion is until you have all the pieces and go where the facts bring you, as opposed to say, like, you know, like a Fox News approach, where it's like, this is how we're supposed to feel about it, so let's cherry pick some facts that'll give us a path to this thing.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, you have more freedom in that way, to just because it's your side of what you know, it's your lens in which you write through, and that's the what you do. You know? Which has got to be kind of cool, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
You just won some awards. You know?
we did. Yeah. Last year, I won an award. I won first place. This is
Really?
U.S. and Canada. Yeah, for political opinion journalism. So this year we were up for 3 awards. One was an investigative journalism award named after David Carr, who from the New York Times got his start in all weeklies. Jordan got 3rd place for a story he did about this like nonprofit that was having people fake positive drug tests to scam Medicaid out of free housing.
Wow.
But the group that won was from Monterey County Weekly, and they found like an organized street gang had infiltrated a protest movement.
Wow.
So how can you compete with that, right? Then he was up for, there was a far-right extremist reporting. So Jordan found a Facebook group for racists who are cops and firefighters and EMTs, like a 3%er, like white supremacist group. So I did that story. Then Sayaka was up for arts criticism, which is a big award for that mural of Frida Kahlo on Marty's property.
Oh, yeah, that checks it.
Yeah. Which she hated.
Yeah, what happened with all that? I know that this huge thing blew up. I don't even know what happened. I know that it was this and then it changed and he went and fixed it.
Well, and like Jay, who's my damn barber, ended up, he had a gun shop up there. He ended up closing his gun shop because it just, all this horrible, he just, it was just this, so they took us like a piece of like stock photography of this like hot chick who's got nothing on but like an open robe, and she's got a couple of guns. You can see cleavage and stuff, and they just popped Frida Kahlo's face on it. And the first time I saw it, frankly, I was like, "That's badass," But people didn't like it. Like, really didn't like it. A lot of women didn't like it. My daughter didn't like it. My wife did like it. And I'm trying to explain to people this whole big hoorah just erupts, and I'm
That's
like,
what art is supposed to do. Though.
Art is supposed to challenge you. Yeah,
they should accomplish
it's
that.
supposed to challenge.
Really.
I said that it was a Jex piece.
Yeah.
Brian Lewis, and I said that to him. I'm like, listen, I've had more conversations about art in the last 2 weeks than I have in the whole time I've lived here.
Yeah.
And what the point of it is, and
what is right or wrong with it?
Right.
You can't really get there.
Right. So I was talking to my daughter Rosie, about it. She's like 15, and I'm like, well. So I just said to you, she didn't like because the nudity and the tastelessness and how it didn't quite jive. Although Frida Kahlo might have liked it because she was kind of a wild dog. So fine. So I'm talking to Rosie and I'm like, well, isn't art supposed to challenge you? And she goes, well, I don't think there's anything particularly challenging about objectifying women. I'm like, well.
Objectifying women is objective.
That is my daughter, though, man, and I love it. I mean, listen, those kids, this is something I've been talking about for a long time. These generations behind us are judgy, and they're judging us, and we're not coming off so good.
No.
And I'll tell you something, my whole theory about this, me, the millennials and the Zoomers behind them, like, you got to reject some of the values of the generation before you. That's what OK Boomer is all about, right? But when they're talking about us, what's there to reject? Like, we don't have a problem with LGBT stuff, generally speaking. We're kind of chill and cool. So they're rejecting, Dusty, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The kids are prude.
It's really bad for my business model. And no, I have thought about this because the amount of kids that are like my son's age, they've never had a drink. They're like super whatever. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a couple. One, none of those kids has ever been punched in the face.
You know what?
You can tell just by by talking to them. It's never even come up. They never even thought they were about to get punched in the face. My kids and all their friends, I'm like, look at you,
That's funny.
But they don't they're not into the promiscuity. Like, if we could go out of town, my kids wouldn't have a party in a million years.
Right.
They're just like, why would we do that? These people in the house.
And YouTube and delivery.
Right.
It's like this huge thing. Like, I don't even want to go out in public and socialize.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, so the people.
I'm so awkward.
Right. Keep up through the bar culture.
And they don't have the social skills. Like, how are they gonna ever get laid? I mean, I'm sure they're doing it.
It's really easy for them now.
Well, right.
Way easier.
But they don't. it's just different, and the values are different, and they're fantastic. They're better than us. You know, I should start off by saying that my kids are way better than me.
I think in a way we think that culturally, behavior-wise, they are, but I don't think they're better than us as far as experience.
Well, I will tell you, like,
we had a lot better experiences.
This goes back to the punch in the face thing. Like, I was talking to this woman. Her kid is friends with my daughter, and she's like from Miami. She's from sort of, you know, like the wrong side of town. And we were talking, and she lives in this nice big house out in like Gibsonville or whatever. And we're talking, and we're looking at these kids, and they're running around the yard like, oh! And I looked at these other parents, and I was like, so do you guys ever worry that like these kids don't have any like street smarts? And they're all like, oh my god, I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if Beck, for my oldest, were to find, he's 20 years old, if he were to find himself on the streets of New Orleans for some reason by himself, he would have all his money stolen in like an hour and a half.
He'd be marked. I took Ella to New York City, right? And like I'm going back very soon to talk to Sherrod about bringing some comics out here from the Comedy Cellar. And I took her to the Comedy Cellar when she was there. I took her all around like my spots in New York. And, you know, I was like, you want to come back? She was like, no, it's really unsafe. I'm like, what are you talking about? You went there, you stayed at the Rockefeller Center. Like, there was nothing.
What the hell, right?
Right? It was completely safe. Like, you never
so noisy, all those people.
But, like, it's strange how it seems like there's a.
And maybe, is that because they're growing up in Greensboro, or is that because, like, I think they're all like this. A lot of my, you know, so a lot of these kids don't drink. A lot of these kids don't drink. Like at my kids' high school,
it's actually cool not to.
Yeah, it's cool not to. It's like the loser kids who drink. It's the total opposite. It's flipped.
Well, maybe too. Like if you're in a reality we were not in, where any mistake you make is now videoed out there, you have a much better chance of not making an ass of yourself if you don't drink at that age.
Well, they think drinking is something old people do. They all smoke weed and shit. But like, so it's the kids. Like in my high school, I started going to bars when I was like 15 years old, man, and everybody drank. All the cool kids drank in my high school. Everybody, even though not cool kids drank. Right. Everybody did.
Everybody, yes.
But now it's like the kids who drink, they kind of look down on them. They're like, oh. And here's the other difference. Right. So like when I was in high school, if you brought your fucking lunch to school in like a little brown bag, everybody was gonna talk so much. You know, it was the losers that brought their lunches. And the cool kids bought their lunch at the cafeteria. You know, now it's not cool to buy your lunch at school. It's bringing your little bento box with all your little sliced and stuff.
Yeah.
The cool kids bring their lunch now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole.
It's totally and
it's bizarro world.
What I've learned just as a parent is like not to sort of superimpose my experience, because listen, by the time I was Beck's age, he's 20, I'd been arrested like 5 times.
Right.
You know, I had been in some serious trouble. I had my personal life was an absolute disaster. You know.
Yeah.
I was trying to like keep my rent paid and like juggling women and like, you know. And they're just not. They don't have. And even like when I went to college, if I'm being real, I went to college so I could go party and just be, you know, just go be a fun person for a while.
That's why I didn't go to college actually.
You know,
waste your money.
Well, and like so, and my kids are going to college. Like they're like, oh, this will be a really useful degree to get. I'm like, wow, okay. They like go to all their. I don't think I went to every single class over the course of a week in college the whole time.
Yeah.
I would always blow something off.
I would never have. I don't even know. I mean, I spent a lot of time on college campuses, but I never actually did.
I ended up, once I found out what I was doing, once I got into journalism, I was pretty serious about it. And I started.
Well, you got to find that thing that inspires you.
And I was like, I need
opportunity for that because they have the world is over to them with the internet. We didn't have the internet. I mean, we didn't have the internet.
Dude,
so they have.
When I started college in 1988, and I wrote my papers on a typewriter, man. And somebody convinced me to switch over to a Mac, and I was like, oh, this is pretty great. And of course, you know, but when I was a freelance writer, I would have to like print up the story, put it in an envelope, you know, mail it out, but maybe that. And you couldn't do simultaneous submissions, and like it was really hard to communicate with people because people wouldn't just take your calls, you know.
Yeah.
And the other man in the newsroom back in the old days, like so in the newsroom. Like your phone book is the most important reference tool that, you know, and your desk phone and your phone book and work in the phones and you would like drill a hole in it and chain it to your desk, you know, because people would steal it. And have you noticed how young people don't know how to talk on the phone? They have like no telephone skills.
Pages anymore. If there is, it's got to be awful. It's very
it's nothing, man.
Yeah,
but my kids don't even like I mean, how do you explain to these kids what it's like to grow up with a house phone in your kitchen, and when it rings, everybody races to go get it? You know, you and your sisters or whatever, you know.
God,
or like, hang up, I got it, you know. And you're sitting there with the cord and like whipping it around. Like
and you get busted because your mom would never hang up. You know what I mean? Like,
hang up!
Like,
yeah. You can even unscrew the mouthpiece. Remember that move? Right, man.
Yeah.
It was like so different, you know. I remember because my sisters are on the same age, so it'd be like a Friday, Saturday night, making our plans to go out, which my kids don't do on Friday and Saturday nights, but we did parties and whatever, and you know, sitting in fields and drinking, and so we'd be making our plans, but like, you know, we got incoming calls, we got outgoing calls. So my dad had like his own line for work, so that was for outgoing calls. The main line, my parents weren't allowed to get near the damn phone on a Friday or Saturday night, you know.
Right.
And like that's what we would fight about, but you know.
Yeah.
And
sure, it's just like three of you.
Well, and like the communication. Remember just stopping by people's houses?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where everybody was. Like, you know, it was the bikes at first, and it was the cars, and then, you know.
Well, and then, like, Maniscalco has that whole bit about it. Like, when your doorbell rings, you're like, what the hell, you know?
And
I mean,
people at your door. Like,
remember when people ring your doorbell? You're like, oh, I wonder who it is. Right. I'll go see. Hello, you know. And it's a nice surprise every time you open the door. Now, seriously, if somebody rings my doorbell, I'm like, I already know who it is because of our little camera.
Yeah,
like, we're not. Just let them. It's just a package. And no one ever comes to the door. If they do, I'm like, what?
You don't even see any like solicitors anymore.
I do. I get solicitors.
Where are the Jehovah's Witnesses anymore?
I get all that shit.
Done.
I get all of it, man. I get like now they got like they do hoverboards and like the Terminix guys and the, you know, just the guys who like the solicitor, and I mean, you're not supposed to be a solicitor in my neighborhood, but
it's so crazy. I shared this video on Facebook, speaking of all kinds of shit, but that's like an Amazon blimp, and it's dropping out all these Amazon droids, you know, with packages going. I mean, dude, we're about to see just the biggest shift in culture and society that the world
we're
has
in
ever
it.
seen.
We're already in. Dude, my friend in New York, man, he has same day Amazon delivery.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, dude, we're about to see people living in pods, man. And you know, I was talking to you about this for a long time ago. I had this screenplay idea, and I thought, you know, they're going to be this tribe of people.
Oh yeah, I think about that all the time.
They unplug, and there's going to be this tribe of people that go into the pod, man. They go into the VR world, and if you think about this shit from the level of like, you know, what we do as human beings, what is our core essence, what is our brand soul, let's say, is that everything sort of duplicates after its own thing. Well, if we're not some sort of hologram, if we're not some sort of
there's like avatar, a 40% chance this is all a simulation. You know,
absolutely.
That, right?
So if that's look at what we're doing. We're simulating avatars, which are becoming a reality that we're living in, and our kids are literally fucking doing that. I mean, my daughter has over 1 million views on YouTube right now on one video, and then like she's got like, you know, hundreds of thousands on the others, where she is creating avatars, okay, through an animator like app, and then telling these stories or subtitles to music, okay, and doing them in parts as movies. Yeah. And so, but she spends creatively all her time working on this shit that she's literally living. I mean, what she would need, honestly, is a room half as fucking big as she has. A computer, a little mini fridge, a way to get food delivered to her, she wouldn't fucking leave. I'm serious, man. Like, going outside is a chore for her.
Oh my god, and they go out and they're like,
dude, I think this is what the fuck is gonna happen, man. There's gonna be someone's out there in the thing, like the old Avatar.
They're gonna be like Gollum,
right?
Right. My kids, when they walk outside, they're just like, you know.
Yeah.
And the fresh air, they're like, it's cold, you know.
It's weird. I'm like, come to the beach and what Fort Sandy? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
and then you bring them to the beach and they sit in the house and watch TV.
Yeah, it's weird. Like all my life, I'm working so hard so that, you know, hopefully this will be a massive success as an expert like that. But I'm working so hard so that I can go travel the world. That's all I want to do. I want to go. You know, if I could go right now, if my wife's passport was into, I would go to Thailand. I would go.
They don't see the point, man.
And experience the cultures and see the people and meet the other travelers, which is really neat because, you know, when you get to a certain culture and you're traveling, you begin to stay at the places because you can afford to, or whatever, that you meet these other travelers, and that's what they're doing, you know?
Right.
And it seems to me like, to me, that's the hippest, coolest motherfuckers on the planet. Are those people who are just, you know, they're traveling around, man, and they're seeing the sights and they're surfing the waves.
Well, think about it, man.
Sushi.
When we grew up, the time and place we were, in a lot of ways, just trapped.
Yeah.
There was I was closer. We could go to Manhattan and do stuff, man. But that was kind of dangerous. That was fucking.
We have like a fucking railroad system.
And that was dangerous too in the 70s and 80s, man. It was a different deal. And we got hassled and we got jumped and stuff like that. And we would go in our stupid suburban, red jacket, CB jackets. Remember those things? But how could you get outside of your realm of experience? What did you have? You had school, you had your neighborhood, you had the mall, you had whatever sports you played.
That's it.
And if Atari had come out. So you have a little, maybe a little Atari crew, but we were so trapped. I mean, how could you even learn about other cities? How could you even? And they're not. They can. My son Donovan decided just for one whole summer, just watched a bunch of videos about how to pick locks.
I love Donovan. He's so funny. But that doesn't surprise me at all.
I know. I was
that's the same thing with Dominic. Whatever the fuck he's into, because of this thing with YouTube and this
he can dive in.
He knows fucking everything about everything.
Remember how hard it was even just to get one of your favorite band posters or T-shirts, man?
Yeah.
You had to go to the record store.
That's what I'm living in now, is having a live music video that shut the fuck down because of the pandemic. But in my life, the best experience I ever had in this underground world that existed was these bands that were coming out, had been practicing their ass off in the garage and went from their first gig to this level. And
that's all I did all throughout
bands, and you were cool as shit if you picked them up at that
from
point.
The time I was 18 to 30, that's what I did every night I was off. I went to go see live music, man. I was in New Orleans. It was fucking dope.
That you saw and that were around that time, you shared that.
But they don't have. And remember, before us, even the big thing was arena rock concerts, in the 70s.
Monsters of Rock.
Remember, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's hey, you got any Blue Oyster Cult? The cool guys got all the tickets to all the
Days of all the tickets to Aerosmith.
Right, man. Everybody's going to the big concert, and I remember it was the first few concerts I used to go to. I went to see Rush. And everybody from my high school would be the Stray Cats were playing with Squeeze.
Wow.
And everybody was there, That's what people did. That was and it was only $7 or $8 for tickets, It was so reasonable. And they don't want the things that we wanted, right? They don't want the experiences that we had. Let me just double check, make sure that kid isn't texting me either. It's everything is so different that I grew up in the 70s. 20 years before the 70s, it was the fucking 50s, right? 20 years ago, it was 9/11. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, they listen to music. Think about the 80s. The 80s was a long time ago.
Yeah, and every generation, always says the music sucks before, but really, this one has outdone themselves with the music.
There's just so much of it. How can you even keep track of it all?
Whatever it is, and then add some Cardi B or whatever. I'm over it. But at least we've had these incredible experiences that I wouldn't fucking change. And you and I have had a lot of definite.
Well, I see you got the Joe Beth poster out.
Yeah, that's out for your appearance here. This was.
That was I probably think about that trip once a week, man.
Dude, it was the whole thing is so much fun, and so there was this competition that came around, and it's still going out actually.
People know about the 48.
Yeah,
so it's an international
film
thing.
Festival, and it's global actually.
It is,
in fact, when we were competing with some of the films, and you would have the fucking France with their national film,
right?
With the aerial shots over Paris.
Because in Europe the government funds arts.
Right,
in Europe, we had here.
So you have this you have 48 hours. You go in there's cities across America that are doing it. They're all over the world, and you pick a genre out of a hat, and then you pick. They give you a line of dialogue, and they give you a character, and you have 48 hours to cast this thing, write this thing, cast it, get your location signed off, shoot it, edit it, turn it in, and it can't be any longer than 7 minutes. And man, it is just a balls to the walls creative adventure, man.
It's
it really
fun.
is fucking awesome.
This is what I think.
It wouldn't matter if you were Spielberg. This would be a challenge. I
totally.
swear to God.
And we saw Spielberg.
We did.
So, and when I think about
Weinstein, I remember wow.
Remember how we tweaked the line of dialogue. The line was "Hold me close and call me sugar."
Right. Yes.
And we flipped. We added a comma.
Yeah.
We added a comma. So hold me close and call me sugar.
Yes.
A comma and a pause.
Oh, right.
That's what got it.
And the device was very clever. And Matt McNeil's actually going to be on the show. He directed this, and Heather Meek, I haven't heard from her in a long time, but we had this great fucking crew. Tim LaFollette, who died of ALS and was big in the music scene here, and we also Chris Avedon, who I think he's in Denver, but
he grew up in the same hometown as me.
Yeah, he was from Long Island. He'd actually like worked on J-Lo shit as a producer, and like in the grind as a recording artist, and not a recording artist, but someone who was
Did
like
sound,
a Pro Tools genius.
Yeah.
And this guy was really, we're always waiting on fucking Chris because he's such a meticulous guy. We're like, motherfucker, if you don't get the sound for the movie, you're fucked.
Remember Tim LaFollette rode the bike to turn it in? He like did the
race down there with the bike. The second thing,
from the downtown office.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. So we ended up, we turn our thing in, and it's our first year working together as this group that we called the Keene Collaboration. And it was really fucking fun. We had so much fun on these sets, and so much fun making these movies. I mean, you guys banged that script out, and it took you a little bit. But,
it was fun though.
And we had constructing the script, all the elements of a device, and you have to how are you going to hit them and what story we're going to tell. We were fortunate enough to draw like drama, so we had a little bit of room.
And we have McNeil, who was a huge ringer, and ours really was a film. Like every visual, it's so deliberate. It really, I mean, I'm really proud of that. I show that to people, and they're like, "Damn, you." I'm like, well, McNeil really, because it was so nicely shot, and all those little professional artistic details.
Right.
Because of that art is all in that fine tuning,
Even that cut that we got in a copy early, right? So this is interesting what the whole thing happened.
Oh,
We give this copy early, right? And we had as like a safety net. Because Matt is working on graphics of this transition, which was pivotal in the movie.
Right.
When you see it, and it's like this flutter thing of lights, the headlights coming up, and you're seeing it through the lens of as if you are the headlight.
Yes.
It's really fucking cool.
It was a shutter fly.
And it was like a shutter cut or some shit. But man, was it fucking cool. And when he did it, when we were just talking about the concept, we had, he was like, hey man, throw that fucking camera on sticks and get some footage of this. The car's going over the bridge when we're on top of the broach. He ended up doing like a reverse time lapse.
Yeah.
In that flitter cut, which gave the tie-in of the time passing.
It was
brilliant.
It was right.
Yeah, it was really good. And so we ended up winning Greensboro in a fucking landslide, right? And then we got to California,
and people were pissed.
Oh yeah.
Well, this town is so full of fucking haters, by the way.
It is, and it's really bad too when you have this. I sort of started this thing with another film.
I know. Well, let's not get into that.
We're not going to get into that, but
where the fuck are those guys anyway?
The point is this. I started this thing because when I came in town, there was all this buzz about these guys who are making movies, and they had won a couple times or whatever, and I'd seen some of their stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I'm going to play. Dude. I'm here to fucking do this thing, right? I'm going to grab a team, we're going to put it together, and
we actually wrote our script inside the 48-hour window.
Right, absolutely. We really, I love working together with them, and Tim, God, man, I definitely want to do a piece about Tim and with Blake on Often Awesome and stuff and what happened to him. He died of ALS at 29, and that sort of ended my I wasn't inspired anymore to do films without him because you work so well and so hard together and we had built businesses together where he was the back end editor, and you have a relationship. It's like
I'll tell you, if things had gone different in Cannes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who the hell even knows, man?
Right.
But
so yeah, we end up. All right, we're at CineQuest in San Jose, California, and this is like the
Filmapalooza.
The Filmapalooza, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but it was at CineQuest in San Jose, and it's like the 3,000 entries, all these winners from across the world, and 10 go to Cannes, and we get selected to go to Cannes, and we flip out. I forget how I told some people.
You called me. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, get the fuck out of here.
We're going to Cannes, dude. So we had no money. We had to set up a fundraiser.
And there was no such thing as GoFundMe.
Right.
There was no such thing as Facebook.
We were like on News 2.
There was no Facebook.
In the morning show or whatever, right?
Do you know how easy we could have raised that money right now? But we didn't have, there was no...
none of that shit, man.
I don't even, was there PayPal? I think we had PayPal.
I don't know, man.
But there was no, we had to make a website. Remember? Because there wasn't any Facebook, there was any social media. And we had to be like, you gotta go to sendthemtocan.com.
Promotion that in print or go on fucking, WXMY or the local news channels to do morning show interviews and then ask people to donate. And we threw a fundraiser, really put the shit together to go down and do it. And we did. We did. We had a fucking great time. And so, interestingly enough, the second night, I think we're there. The first night, I think we're there. We leave. we get tired of the $57 beers that are on the strip, on the beach at Con, where all the hoopla is. And we learned from Marissa, who's another friend of ours that was in this movie, who ends up meeting some dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, this is where the shit is.
Sun 7?
We go to Sun 7, which is in Con, and it's like this little bar with cheap drinks, and they stay open late, and they're spinning American music.
And it was all the film people.
Yeah, it was
well,
like
the whole city was film people.
The whole city was film people. But this was for like more of the guys that enjoyed like a dive bar, and like really. So we end up meeting this group of people, and a lot of them are from Britain, and one of the guys is his name is Mo, and he was with Dubai Films.
Right.
And so I, of course, am like networking my fucking ass. I've got this bag of scripts and shit, and I'm going to kind of like pull off like,
right.
dude, I'm going. This is my shot, right? This is our shot. And so we give this guy this DVD at the time, which that's how you.
Right.
the DVD.
And you couldn't watch it on your phone.
No.
You still flip phones too.
So watching on your phone and that shit. So
we couldn't text each other.
Well, we could text each other, I think.
My phone wasn't working at all when we were up
I
there.
think we could text each other, but I don't know. So anyway, yeah, because this is before the fucking iPhone even came out. Yeah, this was in 2008 in Cannes.
Yeah.
And so the guy takes it back. We enjoyed hanging out with this group, and we immediately
they were great.
This group. They were like 8 of them. There was like 8 of us. It was a really good time. And then the next night, the dude comes back. He's like, "Man, I gotta tell you, dude, I'm here. My buddy is from from England, and his film is amazing." He's like, "I can't believe you guys made this." He's like, "So my work is done. I was here to recruit, American filmmaker and fucking filmmakers that can come to Dubai and make $5 to $6 million budget movies in Dubai."
And we were we still had a film credit in North Carolina. That's how long ago it was. We were telling people you can shoot a movie for $1 million.
Yeah.
And you can shoot a feature film for $1 million in North Carolina.
Well, his thing was like flying us to Dubai, and he was like,
Right.
"So this is how it's gonna go down. We're gonna
meet the Sheik.
This is gonna be the thing. You're gonna fly to Dubai. You're gonna meet this. You're gonna you've got your scripts, your ideas, and then we'll have budgets for this, and then some of the things they're gonna want to do that they're on the table for their production company that they're gonna want you to produce and direct and make there." And I was like, "Holy shit, man. We've hit the big time. This is it. I'm gonna go back to fucking Greensboro.
Pack my
everybody
shit.
to kiss my ass. I'm going to Dubai, and I've become what I've always thought I was gonna be on my own terms. Right?
See you assholes later.
Right, and and throughout my life, I think I jumped the gun on that part of it. I think that thing may be the nail in the coffin for me. But so anyway, we're loving it. We're we're partying at this point, man.
Oh my God.
Fucking glass drop. It's Clarey doing a bit, and he's talking to fucking A-list celebrities about Ron Jeremy and
oh my God, I could drink so much. I was so good at it.
You were good at it to the point that you couldn't hold the glass in your hand.
Well,
there were 15 times you dropped a beer, but we had been partying the whole fucking week there, and it was just really a joyous time, it really. And so also another funny thing.
We wore suits every night.
I was like, yeah, dude, fucking tuxedos and shit. We ended up in these parties that had just done up themes about the movie they were doing, and they were showing in the screening at Cannes. We met the Iron Sky guys that were out of Germany or out of
Sweden or something,
and they they have I think there's 3 of the Iron
They've
Sky
got
guys.
a whole trilogy
made
or something.
It big. They had a huge hit on Netflix.
I never watched it.
Oh, dude, it's great.
Remember Tony Jaa? We were watching that Tony Jaa thing where
yeah.
And as soon as we were watching, this other guy comes and goes, "What are you already watching? I'll buy it!"
Right, yeah, remember I'll give you $300,000 for this.
It was this is what I was saying to all the movie people, because they were like, "Who are you?" I was like, "I'm actually a journalist." They're like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I wrote a film." Look, what do you think? I'm like, "Well, I gotta be honest with you. I think probably 80% of you guys are completely full of shit." And they were like, "That's actually low."
Yeah. I mean, it was so much fun. We had what a bizarre and awesome fucking time. And then at the end of it, so you were riding this wave. I was about what had just happened, and wow, what a fairy tale. And then the night before the last night at Con, we are on the church steps with our group, and the sun's coming up over the water. I remember this yesterday.
It was
we're
like a
looking out,
moment.
and we're smoking this joint on the church steps, man, and we're all just laughing our ass off, having a good time. And we split our ways, and we're like, "All right, see you tomorrow at Sun 7, whatever. Yeah, bye." And the next night we met at Sun 7, and it was these guys were, the fucking air had gone out of the blue. What is going on? What's the matter? And well, you won't believe this, man, but Mo, last night we were pulled, and he was cavity searched.
He got profiled because he's Muslim.
Muslim, even though he's British accent. He was Muslim. He was working for Dubai Films. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and he had a
think
Dubai
about
passport, yeah,
Films,
his ID
you know,
and everything.
You can't even drink working for Dubai Films.
No.
And so he kind of like, that's why I think we met him at Sun 7 anyway, because he's like off the path.
He was secretly drinking.
Yeah. You know,
They can't even have coffee, man.
it was really, you know, so he gets cavity, so he gets given a DUI, he's possession, fucking
Oh,
drugs,
yeah.
and he's immediately fired. And so everything that we thought, that we had gained is gone.
But that's that business too, right,
Yeah,
man?
it's gone.
I mean,
and then the other thing that was really fucking interesting, and I want to tie this into the next kind of thing.
all right, because I'm running low on time.
Okay, but the other thing that I was gonna talk about is as we go to leave that next day, the country of France, they wanted some benefit with their tax dollars that they were not getting. And so the entire country came together and just shut the fucker down. I mean, people like
the strike?
They
yeah.
pulled tractor trailers out in the middle of the streets and just walked away. Went to the beach. There were no air traffic controllers. There was nothing. And they knew that they were doing this during a time when all the most prominent people over the world, the A-list movie stars, whatever. I mean, I remember seeing Mike Tyson in line at the first class line at the airline, just like, what do you mean I can't get so none of us could leave. None of us did. So they had to reroute everything. We ended up spending different nights in different places getting home because we had to like stay over. Some of us in England, some of us in Europe.
Well, this is what pissed me off. This is why I think you're a leprechaun. It's because I had to like buy a new ticket. They were looking at me like I was just such an ass for missing my flight. I'm like, I couldn't even get here. It was like $90, €90 for a cab or something.
Wow.
And I was like,
I got set up.
And I didn't get set up. I got the stink eye.
Oh, dude, they like threw me money. Here's a hotel. Here's this.
I had to sleep in the airport. I was still in my damn suit. Yeah, and you were like, dude, we're in a hotel in London. I'm like, I'm sleeping under the chairs at LaGuardia. What the hell? And I had to they were like, we can't get you back, and I was like, can you get me back to New York? So I got to New York, and I stayed at my parents' house, and then got back to North Carolina. But dude, that was an incredible trip. That was one of those things. I was like, I can't believe I'm here. We saw P. Diddy's boat.
Yeah, I remember Tyra Banks getting kicked off the yacht or some shit.
We were just like, what? This is what are we even doing here? And
that was great, man.
And just the whole town reminded me so much of the French Quarter.
What I loved about that scene, because we did eventually get home, but is that it was probably like 8 or 9 hours of this bullshit, which cost everybody a wrinkle in their day traveling out of France that night. Is that the whole country stood together. And I think you could never see that in America.
It's totally different because
they were able to stick together, get what they wanted immediately for the people, by the people, which is what fucking
Yes,
democracy is
and listen,
about. And we don't have that
in
here
France. The government fears the people.
Right.
Here, we fear the government.
Right. And when that happened, how did that happen? I don't know. It's something we can definitely continue. I know you got to go, but Brian, it's always fun hanging out.
I know,
with you,
man.
And
we could do this all day. We used to do this all day.